The next section for satin stitches is on short stitches. And since this is kind of a short intro and lesson, we're going to go ahead and combine the two into one. So let's get started. Short stitches are utilized in cornering to decrease the density on the inside of an object when it's going around a corner. It offsets every other stitch on the inside wherever necessary. As a satin stitch goes around a tight corner, the inside density of the satin stitch actually gets tighter and bulkier, while the outside of the stitches get spread out more, and which makes it look like it has less of a density. You end up with a really dense inside and a lighter than desired density around the outside. And if you don't apply short stitches, you can get a lot of bulge. You can increase your fabric distortion, and you can actually cut a hole in the garment. As you can see in this example right here, I have the same object with no short stitches applied and with short stitches applied. It may be hard to see on this video, but along this inside edge on the corner, you have the stitches going in a straight line, one right after another, and they're really close together. While if you look at the outside of the object, the density or the distance between each is actually further apart and it's lighter. So with short stitches example, you will see that every other stitch is indented. So you have one right here, then it goes inside, then it comes back to the edge, inside, edge, inside. What this does is it eliminates the bulk across the inner side of the corner, and it also prevents a lot of bulk, and you will not have as many issues stitching this out, and you don't run the risk of cutting the fabric. So in the lesson, you're going to be able to stitch out this design right here that has no short stitches applied and that has short stitches applied. So let's go ahead and take a look at that lesson. Satin stitch lesson number 7, short stitches. This lesson was created to show you how to apply short stitches to tight corners. And I'm going to go ahead and open up the design in the software that you will be stitching out. And let's take a close look at what's going on with this shape, which is in the shape of the letter U. You'll notice that they look pretty much the same up at the top part. It's down at the bottom where they start to have a difference. And in the example on the left, there are no short stitches applied. And so as you look at this, you'll see that these stitches line up in a row and they're really close together. Let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit closer, and let's go ahead and take our ruler and let's measure the distance between these. So you can see in here we have 0.1 millimeter, 0.2 millimeter in between these. Now let's go to the edge and let's measure, and you got 0.5 millimeters, okay, 0.6. Let me go ahead and select this object, and you'll notice that the density applied to this is 0.5 millimeter density. So even though we have a 0.5 millimeter density, you'll notice that the inside in this area right here at the bottom was 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters. So it's really tight, really close together. Now let's take a look at this object over here. What you'll notice right away is that every other stitch drops down, and it drops down, let's see how much right here, about 0.9 millimeters. And what this does is it allows this distance between here to be greatly expanded from the previous. So you're not going to have these stitches that are so close together, and that's the advantage of short stitches, is it drops a stitch just short of the edge every other time in order to prevent this bulk. And the biggest thing that you have to worry about when you're stitching something out where you don't utilize short stitches is you can actually create a hole in your garment, or it's going to bunch up a lot right here in this area. So it'll look like it's really tight and dense on the inner side here, but then it's going to look really light and open on the edge, and it just looks funny. But not only that, it's harder for your machine to stitch out, and like I said, you can cut a hole in your garment because the stitches are so close together. And in this example, it's going to spread it out, and it's going to be a lot easier on your machine and the fabric that you're going to stitch the design out onto. Now the software, generally most of them will automatically apply short stitches, and you can see that in this one it doesn't, and that's because if I come over in my properties here, you will see that you have a bunch of different options, right? And when you get in here and you get to general, you'll notice that I have short stitches here. This is unchecked. If I check it, it's going to do what you see over here in this one. And so you want to make sure, you can see that has been applied, and then let me take it off and you can watch what will happen here. Okay, so what you'll want to do is make sure that this is checked. If you have Floriani FTCU software, it is automatically checked, and so you don't have to worry about that as you create a design. But if you're working with a design that you didn't create, that somebody else did, and before you go to run it out, I would take a look at corners in a design, and I would select the objects and make sure that short stitches is applied to it, just to make sure that you don't get this excessive bulk here and issues that come from that. So make sure that you take a look at the software in the settings and locate where short stitches is found, especially if you do not own Floriani software. You'll want to figure out where that can be found, and make sure you stitch this design out onto knit and onto woven material. I look forward to seeing the examples and what you have to say about it.